You weren't born so much as deployed. Sure, technically there was a birth, screaming, blood, the works, but in the 41st millennium, that's just paperwork. The moment you took your first breath, a servo-skull was already filing your serial number, and your mother was being audited for not producing twins. If you're watching this because Henry Cavill keeps tweeting about some show called Warhammer 40k and you want to know what the hell it actually is, buckle up. I'm going to explain the entire universe to you in 10 minutes through the worst day job in human history. Welcome to your life as an Ultramarine. You were 11, you were fast. You survived something that killed your village. That last part is what mattered. Some recruiter in robes showed up, made you stab a goat with a rusty knife and called it a psychological aptitude test. You passed, allegedly. They put you on a ship that smelled like incense and disinfectant. Half the kids who came with you didn't survive the first night. They congratulated you on still being alive and then took you to the next test. Then came the surgery. They installed 19 organs into your body, not metaphorically. They literally cut you open and started adding things. One lets you eat poison, one lets you spit acid, one filters out psychic interference. One, and this is real lore, lets you survive in space for short periods. Another one just monitors your loyalty to the Emperor, you know, in case. The last upgrade is the black carapace. They graft a layer of armor under your skin so your power armor can plug directly into your nervous system. From this point on, you don't wear armor, you are armor. If it itches, that's heresy. If it pinches, that's loyalty. They erase your name, they call it purification. They erase your memories, they call it devotion. Your personality is reclassified as unauthorized variants and scheduled for removal in your next maintenance cycle. You're assigned to a chapter, the Ultramarines, the blue ones, the noble ones. The ones who print their battle plans on parchment and then set the parchment on fire for extra holiness, because nothing says tactical efficiency like burning the documents before the meeting. You don't feel noble, you feel heavy. You meet your squad in a training cage, no names, just chainswords and unprocessed trauma. One of them hasn't blinked in 3 weeks. One of them quotes scripture in his sleep, which is concerning because he doesn't know any scripture. One of them keeps talking to his bolter like it's his dead twin brother. You hope it's a metaphor. It is not. You learn quickly. Asking questions gets you reevaluated, and reevaluation means a chaplain hits you with a crozius until you remember why you joined. Which is hard because they erased that memory. They told you this was Brotherhood. It mostly feels like structured emotional damage with a uniform code. Your first deployment is something called the Great Crusade. The mission, reunite thousands of human worlds with the Imperium. The strategy, walk in, ask politely, and if they don't agree, redecorate the planet with bolter shells. You were told to bring unity. You brought a rifle and the moral flexibility of a man who has not slept in 2 months. Your first kill is a rebel who called the Emperor kind of overrated. Your second kill is a child with a plasma gun and unrealistic expectations. You tell yourself this is for humanity. It tastes like burning oil and a complete absence of self-reflection. Once you saw your Primarch, Robot Gilliman, the avenging sun, built like a cathedral with abs. Glows like a man who has filed his taxes correctly for 2 centuries. He's basically Henry Cavill, but 8 feet tall and surgically incapable of disappointment. He doesn't see you. He sees the formation. But you stand a little straighter anyway, because that's what you do when your Gene Father walks past. Even though Gene Father is just a polite way of saying the man whose DNA they harvested to grow you in a tube, you believe in him. You believe in the Emperor. You believe in the idea that all this pain has a point. Because if you stop believing, even for 1 second, you might remember what it felt like to be human. And that would hurt more than the surgery did. For a while, the system actually works. The Emperor has a plan. The galaxy has structure. Your squad only stabs each other during training drills. The Great Crusade is mostly screaming and compliance bullets, but at least it's organized screaming. Then your cousin Legion stops answering Vox calls. Then another Legion shows up to a war zone with a new logo and significantly more eyeliner. Then someone whispers, "What if Dad is wrong?" and the next day you're being deployed against your own gene brothers, the guys you trained with, the guys you bled with. The guys whose names you forgot because they made you forget, but whose faces you absolutely still remember. This is called the Horus Heresy ***. Naming a galactic civil war makes it easier to file in the archives. The Emperor's favorite son, Horus, decides Dad is a tyrant, recruits half the Space Marine legions, and launches the largest betrayal in human history. It's basically Thanksgiving dinner if Thanksgiving dinner involved orbital bombardment. You thought the Xenos were bad. Try explaining betrayal to someone who shares your jawline and your war crime resume. 1 minute you're chanting hymns next to a guy over a ration brick shaped like guilt. The next, he's across the battlefield wearing the same armor, just slightly moodier, whispering about how the Emperor isn't who he used to be. You shoot him in the throat. He doesn't flinch until the second shot. Loyalty used to be simple, now the word bearers quote scripture mid-stab. The Emperor's children turned warfare into performance art with terrible safety standards. The World Eaters gave up grammar entirely and now communicate exclusively through chainsword decibel levels. One of your squad mates starts carving symbols into his armor. The chaplain calls it a reason to break out the flamer. You don't ask questions. You just start cleaning your bolter a little more obsessively than is strictly necessary. You start to understand something nobody told you. Chaos isn't an enemy from the outside. Chaos is what humans become when nobody is watching, given names and a fan club. They tell you the Siege of Terra is the moment that defines humanity. You're not in the throne room, you're not even near the throne room. You're 3 decks underground, crawling through a sewer beneath what used to be a museum. Above you, titans are fighting like kaiju with custody disputes. Beside you, 6 exhausted brothers are bleeding into trench rot and reciting litanies like it's mosquito repellent. You hold the line for 13 straight days, not because you're brave, because the medic ran out of stims and decided that anyone still moving was, technically, fine. Then the announcement comes. Horus is dead, the Emperor lives, you don't feel victorious. You just feel tired, you clean your bolter, you eat another ration brick shaped like a purity seal. You wait for someone to tell you what comes next. Nobody does. They say the Emperor chose this. They say he's watching over us. You look around at the broken walls, the shattered squads, the half-dead world you're now expected to defend. And you ask the question, did we win? The Emperor endures, they say. That's code for he's been bolted to a giant golden throne wired into the psychic mainframe of humanity and is currently functioning as a divine Wi-Fi router. He's not dead. He's not alive. He's something new and significantly more depressing. Without him, warp travel collapses. Without him, humanity goes blind. Without him, 10,000 years of empire fall apart in a week. So they keep him plugged in. For 10,000 years, the traitor legions aren't destroyed. They escape into the *** Eye of Terror ***, a massive warp rift where reality runs on fever dream logic. You will be hunting them for the next 10 millennia. Yes, 10,000 years, that's not a typo. Decades blur together, wars change names, enemies respawn with new hats. You've been at war for centuries, at least it feels that way. You stopped counting somewhere around your 20th compliance campaign. You return from one deployment after a warp storm. 2 hours pass for you. 12 years * pass for everyone else. Your bunk has been reassigned to a servo-skull named Clanky. Clanky snores, you're not sure how, but he does. They give you new recruits, Primaris Marines, taller, shinier, built like bad decisions in power armor. They're polite, efficient, soulless. You don't hate them. You just hate that they still believe. The chaplain has started mumbling during sermons. The apothecary stopped naming the dead and switched to serial numbers. You haven't prayed in 38 standard cycles, not because you lost faith. You just ran out of new material. Sometimes in dreams you see your old squad. Sometimes you see them on the battlefield. The problem is they've been dead for * 400 years *. You ask the librarian if that's normal. He says, define normal. Then his nose starts bleeding. You reload, you keep going, you're a Space Marine, you don't get to stop, you wake up on another battlefield. You don't remember getting deployed. Strange, you haven't blinked since the Horus Heresy. Strange, your voice sounds like static through a vox. Strange, your hand weighs as much as a tank. Mid-firefight, you turn toward a shattered wall panel, chrome, reflective, and for the first time in a very long time, you see yourself. You're not a Space Marine, you're a sarcophagus. Fists the size of jet bikes, legs welded to a mech frame, a casket with guns. 300 years ago, you took a wound that should have killed you, but the Imperium doesn't waste loyal soldiers. They cracked you open, removed what was left, and welded you into a walking coffin. They bolted weapons to where your arms used to be and woke you up whenever the war needed another immortal killer. You're a Dreadnought ***. You haven't been alive for the last 3 centuries. You've been active ***. There's a difference. Between battles, they put you in a niche, sealed the doors, and waited for the next time the Imperium needed someone too stubborn to die. You nod, or the sarcophagus nods, same thing now. You're a Space Marine, now you're a very expensive microwave that punches tanks. And here's the thing, you're not even the worst case in the Imperium. Somewhere out there on a planet you'll never visit, there's a guardsman, a regular human, no implants, no power armor. No surgery, just a guy with a flashlight rifle and an average battlefield life expectancy of ***15 seconds. Want to know how he lives? That's the next video. This was Warhammer 40,000, a universe where victory means waking up in the sarcophagus one more time. The Emperor protects. Mostly because he's been welded to a chair for 10,000 years and physically cannot do anything else.